Good evening, friends, and welcome to another edition of Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace. You know the drill. We're retired New York City police detectives and 9/11 World Trade Center first responders. If you like all things true crime related from the police detective's perspective, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you get all things DutyRon and this guy over here, my partner, Ed Wallace, when we go live or upload another video. Tonight, we're going to talk about Bryan Kohberger. Was he going to murder other people? His digital search, online search history sure does show the potential for that. But, you know, we went one step further in our conversation before we went live. Ed said, I feel like he killed before.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Or attempted to kill before.
Let's talk about that a little bit, Ed.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, there's a case in that neck of the woods that they haven't been able to link him to it, but it sounds very eerily similar to what transpired in the Idaho 4 case, and that, you know, broke into a female's basement apartment dressed in black with a mask and a knife, and she was able to fight him off and chased him, scared him, and chased him out of her apartment. A person, that is. We don't know that it was him, but it's, you know, all the hallmarks are there. But there was no forensic evidence or anything found to link BK to that incident. But yeah, you know, I know that it was looked at and quite closely by law enforcement after the fact.
Right. Hey, before we get into it, and we got a lot to unpack here tonight, I just want to say a special thank you to the Patreon supporters, the channel members, the moderators, the replay viewers. Our replay viewers and the moderators are unbelievable. Our live chatters, you guys are second to none. But I also want to take a moment to thank everybody for sending me messages on the loss of our cop, one of our members of the cop team. We lost Popeye on Monday. So just a week ago today, we lost my African gray parrot, who was going into his 38 years on this earth, and he's been with me since I'm 24. So thank you to everybody who reached out, and, you know, Ed and everybody. You guys have been all too kind. Angela sent me some really nice things, and everyone who's reached out, I love you guys. I appreciate it. It was a deep loss. It really hurt me hard in the heart, because he's been with me longer than I've been married. You know, it was a part of my life. So it was really, really tough for me. And I'm just starting to get back in the swing of things. So let's get back into Bryan Kohberger. Let's listen to a little piece from the Today Show. They posted this today. Let's listen to what they had to say.
Chilling new details about the night Bryan Kohberger entered an off-campus house in Moscow, Idaho, and began a brutal rampage that left 4 college students dead. Newly released documents from Idaho State Police reveal a surviving roommate told officers she heard Kohberger call one of the victims by name, saying she heard a male say, "It's OK, Kaylee, I'm here for you." Kaylee Gonzalez was fatally stabbed in bed on the 3rd floor along with Madison Mogan. Their friends Xander Kernodle and Ethan Chapin were both murdered downstairs. Kohberger accepted a plea deal that kept him from facing the death penalty. But after the verdict, Kaylee's parents told Today they're still haunted by unanswered questions in the case.
We asked them, can you just tell us the last moments of our daughter? They wouldn't even give us the facts of what happened.
Forensic experts hired by prosecutors to examine Kohberger's cell phone say he effectively wiped it of content for the month surrounding the murders.
I think the gap in the digital data is the loudest piece.
They say Kohberger also did not have a lot of contacts in his phone.
I have worked major terrorism investigation, and these terrorists would have more contacts than that.
But called his parents, who he referred to as mother and father, constantly, including the morning after the murders.
He needed mother and father, clearly every single day and every single night.
The police documents also include new interviews with Kohberger's criminal justice peers and professors at Washington State University, where Kohberger was pursuing a PhD. One professor there telling police she warned colleagues that, quote, Kohberger is smart enough that in 4 years, we will have to give him a PhD. Mark my word, I work with predators. If we give him a PhD, that's the guy that in many years, when he is a professor, we will hear is harassing, stalking, and sexually abusing his students. And a fellow student told police she talked with Kohberger about the murders weeks after they happened, saying he told her whoever had committed the homicides must have been pretty good, noting that the timing right before students left for winter break made it a good choice.
Well,
This guy's pretty full of himself, Ed. You know, just talking to people about the murder after he committed it, and saying, yeah, this guy must have been a really smart guy.
Total narcissist. You know, he even said things in, if you read these interviews of the students that he was in contact with in Washington State, that, when I get my PhD and, there's not going to be any work out there for the rest of you. And I was like, wow,
Right.
you know.
Yeah, this guy really was full of himself, and at the end of the day, thought he was the smartest guy in the room. And there's reports that when there was female professors teaching a class or a course, he would come in late. When there was a male professor, he was there on time, and sometimes would get there early. Somebody in the chat said, and I want to also say thank you to ATS News. Amber has been providing Kristen with a lot of data. It's 300 pages that first initially came out from the Moscow Police Department, and then 600 pages of documents and information that was released. Just as a side note, Madison Mogen's family, her mom, put in she got a temporary injunction order to keep any information and crime scene photos of her daughter's room from being made public. So that's just today. She just filed that today, and it was just granted. I'm going to show that on the screen real quick. Just a little bit of info for you guys in case you haven't seen this. So it's a press release, temporary restraining order issued for for Kohberger public records release. And this comes as of today. On the 12th, it was filed. The city of Moscow was served with notice of petition to the Latah County District Court for temporary restraining order and an injunction to prevent the release of any further and additional public records related to the state of Idaho versus Bryan Kohberger. On behalf of Madison Mogen's mom, Karen, this action followed the recent release of redacted crime scene photos, which we covered last Friday, by the Moscow police in response to legal public records requests. So there you have it. They're going to pull back on release of documents and photographs as it pertains to Madison Mogen's bedroom. And we know Madison Mogen was with Kaylee Gonzalez in that bedroom. So, but a special thank you to Amber, ATS News, for providing Kristen with a lot of the data while I was away. And I was taking a little bit of time off. I also received this information from Cindy, our good friend, Cindy Holenbeck. So thank you, Cindy, for providing me with that right before we went live. So how many of you guys have seen the interview with Brian Enton? He's got his own channel. I know, Ed, you and I are watching Brian's stuff. He's a friend of ours. So Brian Enton investigates and interviewed two forensic examiners that were hired by the FBI. I believe it was Jared and Heather Barnhart. I hope I'm saying that. Barnhart. Yeah. So hired by the FBI in March of 2023 to look at the Cellbrite extraction. So by a show of hands, how many of you have seen that video? He just uploaded it today. It was fantastic. It was 40 minutes. We've condensed it to 16, and we're going to play that for you. Ed, you listened to it. What was some of your takeaways other than, Bryan Kohberger obviously talking to his mother and father, as he refers to them, mother, father, every day for multiple times, morning and night, and anything else that you might have gleaned from it?
There's a 3-hour time difference. Okay. Yeah. And And so he would call them at 5 o'clock in the morning, his time, which is 8 a.m. East Coast time. And then he would call them at night as well.
East Coast time is behind. Oh, don't you? Isn't that right?
It's 5 a.m. in the West Coast, and the East Coast, it's 8 a.m.
Yeah.
Right. So 3 hours. East Coast is 3 hours ahead of the West Coast. So,
Correct.
That said, again, reading into some of the interviews, especially of one of his college professors, the college professor said that BK liked to play mind games and establish dominance and control using his physical presence and conversations. Okay. So again, there was some thought that his doing this with his parents was manipulating his parents and dominating the parents with these phone calls. And there others are saying about his anxieties and insecurities and other issues that, he needed the nurturing, the comfort of speaking to them often, because as they said, he had limited contacts in his cell phone. Most of his contacts were family members.
Yeah, right. And Ed, I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I don't like to do this often, but I really got a strong feeling as an investigator that Bryan Kohberger's either mom or dad or both of them had knowledge of what he did on November 13th, 2022. And I want to tell you why I think this. He spoke to him so much. He spoke to them exclusively. He had no other friends. There was no people that he had to kind of vent on. It was them that took the venting. And this gave me Brian Laundrie vibes, like how Brian Laundrie's parents knew that their son came home from that cross-country trip with Gabby Petito and just parked her car in their garage, and they didn't know anything about it. Let me know what you guys are thinking in the chat. But this Bryan Kohberger case gives me that same vibe. Like, he told the parents, I did something really bad, and then completely told them about it. And his father got on a plane and flew out, got in his car or whatever, got on a plane, flew out, got in Bryan Kohberger's car, drove across country with him. And I mean, the way we know Bryan Kohberger's actions leading up to him getting arrested, he was in that safe space with the parents and he communicated with them exclusively. I don't know. What do you guys think in the chat? I really feel strongly that the parents knew what he did. Maybe they didn't know the complete details, but I think that they knew. Ed, your thoughts?
Well, that should have been brought out in the investigation, because if in fact they knew, then they could be accessories after the fact, especially the father who flew out there and then drove this kind of crazy route back to Pennsylvania. Again, when did the father plan this? That should have been brought out in the investigation. When was it planned? Was it planned before the murders, or did the plan for him to go out there and ride back with his son in the car to Pennsylvania occur after he committed the quadruple homicide?
Yeah. But again, like, it's just my spidey sense. And again, this is my speculation. I'm not saying that they knew, but I'm just saying that I get this feeling that the Kohbergers knew more than what they led us on to believe they knew, because again, as you said, Ed, there was nothing in the investigative 600 pages. I looked for it. There was nothing as it pertains to Bryan Kohberger's father or mother being questioned about it. But what really, really stood out to me, Ed, is after he was collared in Albrightsville on the 30th, the first thing he asked, and this is from his attorneys, we got this in news reports, was anybody else arrested?
Right.
Why did he ask that? We know there was nobody else that helped him or that participated in this. That's what brought me right back to the parents, and that they had knowledge, because that was the first freaking thing he asked. Was anybody else arrested?
I mean, as a parent, we know our kids like the back of our hands, right? We know when something is wrong with our children. We know when something is good. We know all these things. We know when they're lying. We know when they're telling the truth. I mean, that's our job, right? To know everything about our kids and what they're doing. Okay. If there was ever a time when a parent felt that their child needed help, then it's incumbent upon them to get the help that the child needs, whether it's, a physical medical issue or an illness, a disease, or mental illness. It doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Too often you hear all these stories from friends and family members of these people like BK, and they said, yeah, we always thought he was a little off, or he always did this or did that, which are signs the person screaming for help.
Yeah.
And nobody gets them the help. Oh, you hear things like this that drive me nuts. Oh, they'll grow out of it.
Yeah.
No, they're only going to get worse. They don't grow out of these things. Oh, it's just a phase.
Yeah. Hey, Ed, Deco Painter and T, Deco Painter and T said that didn't Bryan Kohberger's sister suspect him? I seem to remember something.
Yes, she did.
And what's funny about Bryan Kohberger is that we know through these online documents and stuff that was released by the Moscow Police Department, and also interviews by professors and students, he did not like women. He did not like women so much that he didn't even like his own sister, because her contact wasn't one of the 16 in his phone.
And if you look at the interviews of the fellow grad students and the students themselves that he was teaching to, all of them have a common theme, and that's why Angela Taylor, Ann Taylor rather, didn't want those interviews of those students to come into trial, because there was a common theme that he did not like women, whether it was his contemporaries or women professors. Yeah. Okay, and there were all these complaints about him.
Yeah. He creeped them out. Tons and tons of complaints.
Listen, I just had to take my annual New York State training that I have to take every year about harassment at the workplace, and it was funny because as I'm going through this, and what's harassment, what's not harassment, what's sexual harassment, and I'm clicking off all these things, and and I'm saying to myself, it's BK. Everything he did.
He fit the bill on all of them. He checked it off. Yeah, crazy. Hey, I want to pool our chat because we have great chat. The live chat is unbelievable. They're very well educated, thanks to you, Ed Wallace, and some of the stuff that we do together. I want to pool the chat. If you think that Bryan Kohberger's family had any knowledge of it, and I'm talking about his brother, his mother, his father, his sister, father, mother, sister. Put a 1 in the chat if you think they had any knowledge of it. Put a 2 if you feel like, hey, these are just innocent bystanders. They had no knowledge that Bryan Kohberger could have potentially been the murderer at 1122 King Road of these 4 innocent college students: Kaylee Gonzalez, Madison Mogan, Ethan Chapin, and Xander Knodel. So put a 1 in the chat if you feel that they had knowledge. Put a 2. Hey, if you think, hey, back off. I don't think so. Leave them alone.
Reading those crime reports from these interviews, one of the professors said he's a future rapist, and then another said that multiple people have said that they thought he was an incel. Yeah. Okay.
And look at the things that he was doing. Like his searches on December 29th of 2022. He was getting paranoid. These 902 searches about federal wiretaps. And searches. He did a 908 search for psychopath paranoia. His mind was playing tricks on him because he was watching all of the news reports about the white Hyundai Elantra. And kudos and credit to not just the Moscow Police Department, but the Idaho State Police, the FBI, which always remained silent. but this is police work at its best. They did not lead on. And on the 29th, they knew who their subject was. They knew who owned that white Hyundai Elantra. They knew Bryan Kohberger, but Kohberger was searching how to get rid of his car, how to buy a new car, how to clean searches and cell phones and all kinds of different things. The New York Times article stating that the police have not identified who the owner is of the white Hyundai Elantra, but this guy knew that he was the owner of that car and he was shitting himself.
And that's another thing too about his parents and his search. He was always, during the interviews of some of the inmates that he was with, they told law enforcement that he was watching every news channel on the TV about him. But when the news started talking about his family, he would shut the news off.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And then what was something else that jumped out at me in those interviews?
He said the inmate said he was interested in the Alec Murdaugh trial. So he was watching that. He liked to watch himself on TV, and he was watching true crime YouTube videos. And we heard from this forensic couple that he was interested in one particular show that was going over the K-bar knife. Now, who knows what show that was, because it's not listed in documents, but maybe they know because they saw it. They saw those searches, this couple. So let's go into listening to this. We're not going to listen to all of it, 16 minutes long, but this is the 42-minute interview, Brian Entin. I'll link his channel in the description. He's growing quickly. All of you are probably subscribed. If you're not subscribed, there'll be a link in the description after this live stream is over. But let's listen to the interview for a little bit. There's a lot of info. And Ed, if you want to stop it at any time, let me know.
Barnhart, they are the digital forensic experts who searched through Bryan Kohberger's cell phone and laptop and were set to testify at the trial.
In March of 2023, the FBI reached out and asked if I would be willing to come in and just be another set of eyes on the data that they were looking at. When you see his phone and his hard drive, there are huge gaps and things that just don't make sense, not normal behavior. So the two of us started working directly with them.
We didn't actually touch the physical phone itself. They had already extracted the data from the phone and sort of made a copy of the hard drive for the laptop. And so we were just working with a copy of the evidence. And so if you think of all the data that's stored on your phone, when it gets extracted, it kind of gets pulled out into a zip file. And then we use software like Celebrate software to take that zip file and put it on your screen into categories with parsed data, decoded data, so that you can see it and work with it.
We both started on the phone, and then I kind of took over on the hard drive, but it was a constant back and forth because he was logged in to Chrome with the same profiles.
What did you first notice on the phone?
So the FBI folks had already looked at the data, and they came to us with, there's a gap in time that we see in his cellular records from this minute, in the middle of the night, until this minute in the middle of the night. And so our focus was looking at that period of time, and then also looking for any connection to the victims, because that was something that they hadn't achieved yet either.
And when you talk about that gap in time, is that the time when we know that he apparently turned off the phone?
Yes.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you could figure out during that time, or was it just sort of a dead zone because the phone was off?
Well, we figured out it was intentionally turned off and that his phone was at 100% battery power and that it was a manual power down. So that's a big thing. If your battery dies, it doesn't mean you went out and committed a murder. But the fact that you turned off Wi-Fi, manually turned off your phone was charged at 100%. It's not normal behavior for Bryan Kohberger to turn off his phone. He had done it a few times. It's not like, Brian, if you every single day, your best practice is before bed, you turn off your phone and you turn it on every morning. We would be able to look at your pattern and say, this is normal for Brian. This is not normal. For Bryan Kohberger, turning off his device like that and disabling Wi-Fi before the murders was 100% abnormal and a huge red flag.
One thing to remember in this case.
So I think that is important, and they would be testifying if there was a trial as to Bryan Kohberger's regular actions, what he did on a regular basis. And they laid it out right there, is that this was not a regular action of Bryan Kohberger. It was not a practice that he did on a regular basis. She said he might have did it one or two other times, That might have been for a reason. Maybe his phone did die. The battery runs out, but he shut it.
But that data would be there. They know that this was a manual shutdown.
Right. And also, his alibi, as expressed by his attorney, Ann Taylor, that he was out stargazing. You don't stargaze and shut your phone off so you can't take any pictures or look at the surrounding area. You go out in the middle of the country to stargaze. That was total hogwash, along with all the other stuff that was brought up to the court's attention by his defense.
Is the time to evidence really matters with digital evidence. And so from the time the crime was committed until he was identified, arrested, and then his device was extracted, it was like 45 days or somewhere around that range. And so as we talk to you right now, my phone is rich with data that is right now, but it can't keep everything forever. And so the more time that passes, the less rich the data is. So some things naturally were purging over time. By the time he was arrested and the phone acquired, some of the stuff was already gone. Immediately when the phone power's back on, that's sort of where the FBI, their CAS team would pick up with cell records to say, all right, now his device is hitting this tower in this area, but the device itself wasn't super busy with files that were changing that we can see now. It was just sort of benign nothingness until around 6 a.m.
He saved his parents in his device as mother and father. And he also called them that. So he would call mother. If mother didn't answer, he would call father. And then he would call mother, call father, and then start texting them saying, mother, why is father not answering? Or father, where is mother?
Is this, come on, let's listen. Let's look at our chat. Is this normal behavior? Look, my son, Frankie, will once in a blue moon, refer to my wife as his mom as mother, but not on text messaging. He'll say it to her like, mother, are you listening to me? Or something like that. But this is bizarre behavior, Ed, don't you think?
Yeah, for our time frame. I can remember black and white movies back in, the 50s, 40s and 50s, where people would refer to their parents as mother and father. It was weird then. To me, it's even more weird today.
They're going to go on to talk about his searches, Christmas night of 2022, the year of these murders. On Christmas night at around midnight, just right before the stroke of the new day, on Christmas night, he's searching for serial killer Danny Rawlins. And he's doing extensive searches that are getting downloaded onto his phone. So let's listen to this because it gets really interesting now.
So it was constant back and forth. He ended up speaking with mother for over 3 hours the day of the murder, from about 6:13 or 6:31 in the morning through 5:54 p.m.
What could he have possibly said to his mother for over 3 hours? It wasn't just a 3-hour long phone call as we described. And as she said, it was batches of calls, one for an hour and change, another one for 59 minutes, another one for 5 or 6 minutes. So he spoke to his mom on the day he committed quadruple murder for that long. What the F did he say to her? God, if I was a detective on this, Ed, wouldn't you be grilling these parents? I would want, I don't know what work was done on these parents. I'm sure there was, because they did a thorough job with everything, as we see from these 600 pages. I fell asleep at one point over the weekend reading these pages. It was just, there was so much work that they did. But what the F did he say to his mother for 3 hours? Come on. It's crazy. It's crazy.
He just didn't have enough activity in his life, any social interaction with colleagues, peers, students, or what have you, to elicit 3 hours worth of conversation with his mother, especially if he's doing it every day. He's talking every day, both in the morning and at night. So they're waking up together and they're going to bed together.
This is definitely giving me Brian Laundrie vibes. Roberta and Christopher Laundrie. It really rings true to me, these people. And one of the 16 or 18 contacts he had, hold that thought, Ed. One of the 16 or 18 contacts he had was girl I ran with. And then another one was labeled hair. What the fuck? What is that?
Yeah, you got to track those people down.
Cujo.
Cujo sounds like Norman Bates. Yes, mother. Yes, I remember that as well in the movie Psycho. Again, then speaking of movies and reading these interviews with the college students, he told one of them that his favorite movie was American Psycho.
Yeah, he did. He damn sure did.
Oh, also, folks, if you don't know, who Danny Rolling is, he's also known as the Gainesville Ripper. And if you know what he did, he killed 5 students, 4 women and a man,
College student.
with a K-bar knife, breaking into their houses through sliding glass doors.
Ain't that some shit? We're going to have to deep dive that, Ed, and do a show on it.
So was it one whole 3-hour call, or was it chunks?
The longest one was about an hour and a half. And then there was a 54-minute call and then smaller chunks. But he could have a 54-minute call, a few minutes would pass, and then another 9-minute call with mother again. Also, I create test data all the time. At Celebrate, we do CTFs. I create labs for Sands Institute where we train people how to work cases like this. And he had 16 contacts. If I ever gave you a data set with 16 contacts, I would expect you to call me out and be like, what's wrong with this? This person isn't talking to anyone. So stuff like that is also really odd.
Were there anyone else that he would call, like that you could see regularly?
Not consistently. There were a few calls here and there, like in the months before the crimes, but especially like around the time of the crime and forward, it was almost exclusively communication with his parents.
So somebody just said in the chat, how would they know what he has on his phone? The FBI CAST team did a forensic and digital download of his computer, his cell phone. But, again, the FBI's CAST team, this crime was committed in the state of Idaho. And then he was a resident with his college and permanent residence of Pennsylvania. He traversed from Moscow, Idaho, Latah County, back into Pullman, Washington, and then across the United States. So at the request of the Idaho State Crime Lab and other authorities, the FBI were called in to assist in the digital and forensic analysis. They're one of the best at it, right? Quantico and the team. Ed, I know you could talk about that.
Yeah.
No, that's not your expertise, but you have a lot of knowledge about how this works.
Yeah. The forensic lab down in Quantico is second to none. And they have all subject matter experts in all the forensic disciplines. So the CAST team is highly regarded throughout the international law enforcement community for their capabilities with digital forensics.
Yeah, 100%. Let's let this continue to play.
A lot.
Morning and night, as early as 5 a.m. his time.
Every single day, pretty much?
He talked to them every day from what we can see. One of the tricky pieces is, for some of the evidence that we don't have because time passed, we do have these call logs. And the one call was 54 minutes leading up until 9 a.m. the day of the murders. And when we said that, someone else correlated it to, well, he was reportedly back at the crime scene around that time. What was he saying to her as he was doing that? As he's driving back towards this crime scene, what were the words?
So he's driving by 1122 King Road and talking on the phone with his mother. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. And this is fact. This is fact based on the extraction of his cell phone by the FBI CAST team.
Miss Amy, 1226. Yes, the Gainesville Ripper case is eerily similar. BK was probably planning to commit sex assault, SA, but was interrupted. He, again, look at these interviews of his fellow college students and his searches on the internet. He had a fetish for sexual assault burglaries.
Yeah, it's in his search. It's in his search history.
It's a huge amount of search history there, and even I believe some of those searches were porn involving that.
Yeah,
Yes, and then
non-consensual sex porn he was
Right.
searching for.
he also talked to several of his the female students and the female grad students that he was working with on projects about that as well, and made them very uncomfortable.
Yeah, he was obsessed with serial killers. He was obsessed with Ted Bundy as well, Dennis Rader, Edward Kemper. These are all extracted from his cell phone. Again, we had many cell phone experts over the time. Good to see you, Sean B. Over the time, we've had many different cell phone experts, and they all said that the Android devices, and that's what he had. He was a Windows Android guy. He didn't have an iPhone, but the Android phones are the best to extract the most information and data. It's not as tricky as an iPhone. So that's the type of device he had. And I'm sure, whatever devices his parents had, I don't know the extent of what they did with extracting data from their phones as well. Probably not, but it doesn't matter because they got it all from his side. So let's take a listen to the rest of this, and then we'll get to your questions. So stand by for question and answer period. We're going to do that for about 10 or 15 minutes.
And we just will never have that.
On his hard drive, he has browser data back through early September, but he chose to clear browser data from October 12th through November 16th. And then on his computer, behavior picked up. It looked like he was back in school and doing typical things. His phone was a little bit different. So his practices seemed to be consistent around the murder on both the hard drive and the phone, but then he changed his methodologies a little bit after.
Yeah, one thing to remember is a normal person's device is busy. You have more than 18 contacts, and so you wake up to a text, you make calls to more than two people.
Here's where that confusion comes in. So she said 16, he said 18. Banfield and some other news outlets reported 18. We know it's somewhere between 16 and 18. More than likely it was probably 16 because this is a husband and wife team. So basically Heather stated that she was in charge of the cell phone recovery and data extractions and analysis, and he did the hard drive and the computers. So I would personally go with 16 contacts. It really doesn't matter, 16, 18. But I believe that she had a more clear gathering of the data because she was the one who was in charge of doing the cell phone interpretations.
He just didn't. And so his device was quiet, like somewhat normally quiet. He had lots of email activity happening. So school stuff and some Yahoo and like Gmail stuff. But it was really quiet device, just in general.
There were the gaps of what we consider normal behavior, but then there were also the gaps from his cleanup, which just made it more difficult. So we recreated every single thing we found on the phone, clearing the browser history. On the computer, it was a little bit more. I found the presence on November 16th of a file called Eraser, but he was crafty. And usually you could see, okay, Eraser was run and it wiped these files. I couldn't find that level of detail, but I could see that Eraser was run on November 16th. Could it be from a virus scan or?
Whoops. Hold on, Ed. I know why that happened. Because I'm watching on my phone. So let me shut that down real quick. Hold on a second. And I'm going to continue it where it left off. I can't watch YouTube from two different devices. It just shuts down, which is weird. All right.
This crime scene.
It looked like he was back in school and doing typical things. His phone was a little bit different. So his practices seemed to be consistent around the murder on both the hard drive and the phone, but then he changed his methodologies a little bit after.
Yeah, one thing to remember is a normal person's device is busy. You have more than 18 contacts, and so you wake up to a text, you make calls to more than two people. He just didn't, and so his device was quiet, like somewhat normally quiet. He had lots of email activity happening, so school stuff and some Yahoo and like Gmail stuff. But it was really quiet device just in general.
There were the gaps of what we consider normal behavior, but then there were also the gaps from his cleanup, which just made it more difficult. So we recreated every single thing we found on the phone, clearing the browser history. On the computer, it was a little bit more. I found the presence on November 16th of a file called Eraser, but he was crafty. And usually you could see, okay, Eraser was run and it wiped these files. I couldn't find that level of detail, but I could see that Eraser was run on November 16th. Could it be from a virus scan or some other scan of software he had on his computer? Sure, but with all the other clearing and stuff, it's just unlikely.
And he was taking some measures. You might say that it was just being security conscious user, using NordVPN as sort of a normal activity so that his IP address wouldn't be easily discovered. Yeah, maybe 5 Wi-Fi networks that were still saved in his device that he had connected to, which is low. I think normally, devices would have a ton.
Was there anything that stood out, like in relation? A lot of people have been talking about the Mad Greek restaurant where one of the victims worked. Was that in his phone?
It was.
I'm so happy that he asked this question, and this is what's great about Bryan Enton, Ed. Bryan Enton is so in tune to what the true crime audience is wanting to know. Like there was so much misinformation all throughout this whole time of Bryan Kohberger awaiting trial. And people were saying, well, he connected to the Wi-Fi at the Mad Greek. He had to be inside there. He was stalking them, or he was outside of it. They're going to tell us and confirm under, 100,000% certainty that he only searched for the Mad Greek restaurant on his phone. He did not at any time go and connect to the Wi-Fi at the Mad Greek restaurant. He searched for it. He searched maybe the menu. They can't even tell you exactly what he did, but it was in his browser select. Like there's like that like if you type in something and then you go to type it in again, it saves that. So it kind of like
auto-populates.
Yeah, auto-populates and it directs you to where you want to go and kind of like helps you along. That's what they tell us here. So at no time did Bryan Kohberger connect to the Wi-Fi. And this is why I love Bryan Enton. He knows what everybody wants to know, and he asks the questions, which is so good. And hello to everybody who's joining, and thank you to everyone who's given condolences on the loss of Popeye, the African gray, my African gray of 37 years. Thank you. Thank you all.
In the Google Maps cache, which means if you open Google Maps and you search,
the Mad Greek restaurant. Is there anything that stood out, like in relation? A lot of people have been talking about the Mad Greek restaurant where one of the victims worked. Was that in his phone?
It was in the Google Maps cache, which means if you open Google Maps and you search for nearby restaurants, or if you typed in Mad Greek, it was physically on his phone. He could see it, but it doesn't show that he connected to the Wi-Fi. It just shows that he had interest in that restaurant.
When he goes back to Pennsylvania, was there anything significant that he was doing then?
Yeah, I think it got a little weirder. Well, we have more visibility into what he was doing then, I guess is the better way to say it. I think when he was arrested, maybe he had a cleanup process that he wasn't able to do because all of a sudden he was arrested. But we had a good couple weeks there of, I would say, his normal activity. And it was very abnormal, but maybe his normal. It was still consistently like lots of communication via email, almost no texting and calling them because he's now with mother and father. Right, so the people he talks to, he can just speak to them in person. But he had some specific searches and activity around serial killers. On Christmas night of 22, just a few days before his arrest, he went to a website that is serial killer timelines. It's this really like rudimentary looking website that just has a list of people, and everything you click, it sort of like loads the biography of that person. And he seemingly just went down a list, just clicking and reading. But a lot of these clicks were actually downloading files to his downloads directory, which he was unaware of, it seems. We ended up with this like long list of serial killer downloaded PDFs from essentially Christmas night. And one of the ones that stood out was Danny Rawling. That one he actually downloaded twice, like in the same hour or two of looking.
And he looked him up in November as well, but after the murders in November. He had issues with professors and he was not turning in any work or doing grades. So for him to go,
I think that, this is great that Heather brings this up, that he wasn't turning in any work. And Ed, you know this because, look, you went to college, the importance of putting in your work in a timely fashion, how professors do not like that. After he committed these murders and drove cross country with his father and he got back to Albrightsville, Pennsylvania, I think he knew in his mind, I'm never returning to Pullman, Washington. I'm never returning to my studies. And that's why I feel like he was searching about serial killers and looking and lusting about what he did, because he wanted to do it again. And that's why I really feel strongly that Bryan Kohberger, as you stated, may have thought about this in the past. There's no doubt that he did, and thought about it while he did it, and then after he did it. And we know this for a fact. Once somebody commits murder, it's almost like you get a taste for it and you want to continue doing it. We heard it with Rex Heuermann. He didn't admit to it, but this is the Long Island serial killer I'm referring to. He killed one person and then just boom, went right on a murder, for decades, a murder. He went on this rampage. So your thoughts, Ed, as it pertains to that?
Again, if he's just starting off, he's got a taste for it now. He's fantasized about this, and there's no doubt in my mind that he wanted to continue this. Okay. I mean, maybe, that search for the K-bar knife was not just, to try to purchase it again in case somebody asked him, where's your knife? Right. Maybe because he wanted to continue to use that knife in his future attacks. Like I said, he did it because he wanted, he liked the excitement. He thought he was smarter than everybody else. Again, folks, I highly recommend, if you can, go to download these interviews, these police reports of these interviews with his film. You'll see common themes that pop up with all these different people about how narcissistic he was and how he thought he was smarter than everybody in the room and that he could get away with murder. And he would talk about these things amongst his quote unquote peers.
And he did not hide that he hated women. He hated women. Mm-hmm. And who could have been next? Anybody that got in his way. God forbid, it could have been his mother, it could have been his sister, it could have been friends or associates or somebody random that he ran into. Look, in his phone, he had girl I ran with. I think she said he had that twice. Girl I ran with one and girl I ran with two. And then he had a random contact saved as hair. What is that? What is that? I'd like to know the rest of the contact.
I'd like to know who these people are.
Oh my God.
If they really exist. He seems like the kind of guy that, would buy a wallet just because they had that little beautiful woman's picture in it and keep the picture and tell everybody that's his girlfriend.
Yeah. Creepy, right?
Yeah. He's one of those guys. Oh, my girlfriend from Canada.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Canadian girlfriend from Canada. Angelique says, I would bet money he's done this before.
Yeah.
We
or attempted to do it. Wait, One thing that I wanted to bring up there, as there was up there before, Ron lost Popeye, but I did not lose Kara. I still have Kara. So
that's fact. I made it clear. I posted it. For those of you who are saying it, go back and read the post. It's very clear. And I don't know, it started with one or two people misreading it, but yeah, Kara's alive and well. Look at the post. It says it in the post.
Oh.
Anyways, to make it, so we made it clear. We cleared the record. Okay. Let me get through this, Ed. I want to hear the rest of this, and I want everyone to have a chance to talk about this.
Doing any work I have to do all this serial killer research on Christmas night just doesn't make sense. He searched for psychopath paranoia. Those exact words, serial killer and wiretapping. So we think he was becoming more paranoid.
On the 29th, it seemed like he was sort of mentally imploding, feeling some pressure somehow. from law enforcement. At 9:02 in the morning, he searched wiretap and then like federal wiretap, so a couple different ways of looking for wiretapping. At 9:08 a.m., he read a New York Times article. The interesting part of this is in this article, they specifically say the police are still.
We have to highlight this one because, again, this comes from the Kohberger side. The media has totally made him guilty. No, he has admitted to his own guilt, and the evidence is overwhelming. So, UC freedom isn't free. You are free right now. You're free from this channel. So, banned and gone. That's like, I don't really have any time for people like that. I had to do it, Ed. Sorry, and I don't usually do that, but he or she is now free from this channel because Bryan Kohberger did not get made guilty by the media. He pled guilty, admitted to his murders, and the evidence was so overwhelming that his own defense attorney, even though Ann Taylor, in my opinion, should be disbarred because she dragged this thing out and went under the ruse that she tried to fight about the autism. She tried to fight to get everything that she could in her power to be thrown out. Everything under the sun, including a third-party culprit, was just a waste of taxpayers' money. At $200+ an hour, she's a disgrace in my book. Disgrace. Let me know what you think in the comments and down below. But yeah, so that was a Kohberger, and I'm just Audi 5000. I got no more. I got no more patience for that ridiculous nonsense.
Looking for, and they describe his car perfectly. At 9:09 a.m., so just a minute later, he read an Idaho homicides update page from out there somewhere. Right after that, he looks for auto detailing shops around where he lived in Pennsylvania. So they're looking for the car. They update about what's going on. I need to get my car cleaned. And then a few minutes later, he's shopping to buy a new car.
Shopping for detail. This is the 29th, Ed. He's looking for a place to detail his car that he's already cleaned. And as we
multiple times,
as we know, he's cleaned his hands when he was in the Latah County Jail so many times that his hands were, bleeding, right, and chafed so badly.
What does he say? They said he uses 3 bars of soap.
Yeah.
In a week.
Showers multiple times a day. They allow him to do that. And he also requests fresh bedding every day. He's not getting that in Idaho maximum.
What does he think he is? A hotel?
Yeah, this is not a 5-star hotel. You're going to have bugs crawling all over you. You're going to have people yelling and screaming and kicking, and not just yelling and screaming for him. That's the environment that he's in a state prison where people are sentenced to death and are sentenced to life. You're not going to get a nice peaceful zen. This is not going to be.
Well, here's another thing too that's been reported in many articles that I've been reading. He's ratting out the other inmates.
Yeah.
Okay, with all that is right. Snitches get stitches, right? And you can't complain about the other inmates like that. Right. He's complaining about petty little things apparently, and to the guards, and so now he's been labeled a rat. That's not good. And even though he is in his own cell, he doesn't share it with anybody, and he's only allowed 1 hour out in. But even that 1 hour, he's not with anybody either.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Kohberger's in a world of shit, and he deserves to be in a world of shit right now. And I am so happy that he's not having one good day. He doesn't deserve it. In the summer, it's going to be really hot there as it is now. In the winter, it's going to be really cold. So get ready.
Did you see the videos that got smuggled out of him inside of his cell?
Yeah, we don't know if that's AI. We don't know if that's real, but I did see it. I didn't give it much time.
It appeared to be somebody took a cell phone to to
whoever did it should be
monitor
and fired. And
right, but if it's true, I mean it shows him organizing his things and
Yeah, somebody's just said, oh, they Ironic Ridge, they have AC in prison. I did a search of the Idaho prison that he's in, and their AC works like shit. And they had to bring in fans a couple of years ago because it was so hot in the summer. And then also in the winter, it's freezing cold in there. So I hope he has the most miserable time. He deserves it. He murdered 4 innocent people. And I hope that bugs crawl over him on a regular basis, because I know he won't like that. Not many normal people would like that. But then again, he deserves all the things that come his way, in my opinion. He's a piece of human garbage, and he deserves to have the worst time for the heinous acts and the heinous crimes he committed of murder.
A used car, but a new used car to him. Different makes and models, certainly not Hyundais, not Elantras, and not white.
The browser gap on the PC that is much more extensive than what we found on the phone is annoying to me. And Jared said maybe he did more research about the victims and his planning and all the things on the PC, and that's why he cleaned it from there. So we don't know. We wonder if that would have given the families more answers on the why, the connections, any type of stalking that happened, but we don't know.
So did you ever find any kind of connection to any of the victims?
The Google Maps search for Mad Greek was sort of the only thing. Other than that, and that's not totally true. Post crimes, they're all over the place. I mean, just actively searching, we're able to look for just their names, first name, last name, and that type of thing. And you get hits all over his device.
So this is what makes me think that this new reporting that's out, that that he said he called that one or more of these victims by their first name. I'm here to help you, Kaylee. They're saying here in this interview, these are the people who got the extracts from the FBI CAS team. They didn't have the exact devices, but they got duplicates of what was extracted, the forensic examination of his devices, and they said that there was no searching by Bryan Kohberger of the victims by name until after these crimes were committed. Right, Ed? You caught that?
Mm-hmm.
So for him to be in there
That they found.
So there is a potential that he did search, and it was
scrubbed. 5
days later, it got rewritten over. But I don't know. You know, like I'm just I always question these things unless I get definitive confirmation when it comes off the internet or even reporting. Because until I hear it from the authorities or from the investigators, or I read the report myself, then I'd say, you know, possibly that did happen.
Lots of Reddit. He's participated. We're able to look for just.
So they also say that he participated in a lot of searching on Reddit. They also say that it's unclear whether he posted on Reddit or he was just in these news groups, because they were saying, if you listen closely, that he was getting Reddit notifications to his phone. In other words, if you're in a Reddit group and you are joined that group and you choose to get new post notifications, I get them. I'm in an African Gray news group for to adopt African Grays. So I get daily posts within that group. If you guys are following what I'm saying, that they're saying here that Bryan Kohberger was getting posts notifications from Reddit, and they weren't definitive that he was engaging actually by talking to people, but they weren't sure either. So let's listen to this.
Their names, first name, last name, and that type of thing. And you get hits all over his device. Lots of Reddit. He's participating in Reddit posts or looking at them, watching YouTube videos about the Idaho murders. I mean, he was very much tracking his own crime. I mean, very actively. He had numerous downloads of like the PDF flyer that the Moscow police released. Like he found it, downloaded it, and it was in his downloads folder.
He Googled himself a lot on his computer. Constantly.
The sources of data, a lot of the Reddit artifacts that we're able to see are actually coming in through his emails.
Because they're husband and wife, Alicia. They're husband and wife. They live together. They work together. So yeah, they'll look at each other. I mean, to answer your question, they work this case together. It would be like Ed and I, if we were working a case and we were being interviewed about it, we would, you know, occasionally be looking at each other as we're talking. Ed, you get anything else from them looking at each other?
No, well, I wouldn't be looking at you as much as I would be looking at her.
Ed, why? Why did you do that?
It's just something that I don't think was paying as much attention to cleaning up. He had posted in a couple different threads, but like one was specifically ex-cons and one was something
Ed.
about prisons, asking for volunteers for something. I'm not sure what, but it doesn't seem to have been school sponsored. And there were people emailing him like right at the very end of December saying, hey, are you still looking for volunteers for this thing? So he was busy on Reddit. There was lots of Reddit, visibility in the artifacts that we saw, but I don't have anything crystal clear of him like participating and commenting necessarily on the murders themselves.
So they don't have anything specifically of him posting and commenting on the murders themselves. So, again, there's artifacts and there's, things on his phone as it pertains to the murders on Reddit. So, all of that craziness that people were talking about, Papa Rogers and all of that stuff, confirmed that was not Bryan Kohberger.
There was one YouTube video about the K-bar knife that was post-crime though. Lots of
Ed, who could you think off the top of your head that he could have watched a video that someone was going over the K-bar knife and was wearing a balaclava mask?
That was the unknown crime scene investigator.
Edward J. Wallace Jr.
J, what J? W.
I know it's W. Yeah, we don't know. He didn't specify. I wish they would have said who he was watching. And I think, Joseph Scott Morgan and Nancy Grace and a whole bunch of, News Nation, so many had, really to everyone's credit, and so many people professionally broke down the K-bar knife, but we were also included in that on the professional. I mean, you pulled that K-bar knife out of its sheath on video.
Several shows.
Several shows. So, it could have been anybody. We're coming towards the end, and we'll take some questions and we'll wrap it up.
true crime type of, so a lot of this stuff post-crime though. Lots of true crime type of, so a lot of this stuff was from screenshots. Like you'd see a picture where he just had a video playing, read the bar at the bottom. The next thing, proposed to him to watch was up top. But it was a lot of like serial killer and true crime type of content.
What about like pornography?
This is where autofill got him.
There's evidence of him viewing pornography. Again, the gap in time around the murders is pretty clean. There's not really much there of anything. But later there's evidence of him looking at pornography websites. But then the autofill kind of captured some of his search terms specific to pornography. So while we can't necessarily put a date and timestamp on when he did these things, we did see what was weirdly consistent for non-consensual sex acts that he was searching for. They're really nasty terms, so I'd clean it up a little bit. Involving rape, drugged sleeping, and voyeurism.
And so
that says it all right there. I mean, this couple here, we're trying to be respectful in this interview. So Jared and Heather, we're not going into the details, but really this says it all right here. What he just described is Bryan Kohberger searching for pornography terms of raped, drugged, and voyeur, a lot of really, really horrible stuff.
Acts that he was searching for. They're really nasty terms, so I'd clean it up a little bit. Involving rape, drugged sleeping, and voyeurism.
And so he was Googling those terms?
Yeah, like that was the thing he typed into the search box is literally what this artifact is. He typed these words.
He typed these words in his phone after he committed these murders of some of the victims were sleeping. And again, we don't know what his motive was. Did he go there to potentially commit a sex crime? We don't know. And but we have to look at what's on his phone. And if he's searching for this stuff and he ultimately committed these crimes, this is him after the fact going and revisiting these wants and needs and urges that he has. He's a sick puppy, and he shouldn't be breathing the same air that we're breathing, in my opinion. Firing squad was the only way to go with this guy, but this is what we have. He's in for the rest of his life, or however long he lasts, in the Idaho State Maximum Security Facility institution, and we'll see how that plays out.
And search.
What we would do is take that artifact and then tie it to the history. But he cleared that piece for us. So we couldn't, that was our missing piece of the puzzle. So we would have all these different things and we couldn't put the puzzle together completely because he had made our jobs difficult. Not impossible, but difficult.
If he was identified and arrested the day of the murders, we could have told you so many things that we can't tell you 45 days later. A little bit of credit to him in that he prepared to kill people and then he cleaned up after the fact. But he wasn't in any way perfect. And there's plenty of stories to still be told.
His mistakes painted a clear enough picture on his intentions to murder. These are the exact things he did to try to remain undetected, to clear his digital footprint. So we were going to try to have the lack of data be the loudest voice in his truth.
The ability to just show up and say that on this night, he was awake and physically pressed the button to turn off his phone. And then by the time he turned it back on, these 4 kids have been murdered. That one thing that we were super sure of means that he wasn't at home. He wasn't asleep. He wasn't doing a million other things. He was specifically awake in the middle of the night when this happened. And that one piece, I think, tells a big story.
And this whole stargazing alibi, I guess, doesn't.
That was just dumb. I had to write in a report. A phone can't take a picture while it's powered down. But
that was just dumb. All right, so let's go to the chat. Ed, if you mind, hashtag Ed, hashtag DutyRon. Please, folks, let us know what your concerns are, your thoughts. Yes, we did look over the 600 pages. I didn't read them all. Like I said, I fell asleep 1 or 2 nights looking at them. There's a lot of data. I didn't get through it all, but so we did look at a lot of them. Debbie has the first hashtag, or at DutyRon, question. Are you going to have the Barnharts on? We'd like to hear the questions you guys would ask them. We would love to have them on. I've already sent them an email. I hope to hear from them. If we don't, we have this. They really, Brian Enton asked a lot of great questions. You would have more questions, I know, Ed, to ask them. Would you or would you not?
Oh, absolutely. I want to know more about his efforts to hide his tracks.
Absolutely. I mean, and we don't, in any way, shape, or form, we don't want to try to educate the bad guys, but this information is out there. It's searchable. And then there are trade secrets that we would never want anyone to give away. But at the end of the day, this is stuff that's out there. So let's see. Hashtag Ed, hashtag Ron. Here's a good one. Megsy says, DutyRon, do you think Bryan Kohberger will be put in general population? I addressed this last Friday night, about a week or so ago, a little bit over a week ago. I was asked that question. He cannot be in protective custody for he's 30 years old, folks. So, in his 50s and 60s, he's not, if he makes it there, he's not going to be in protective custody. This does not last a lifetime. The Department of Corrections is not in the business to protect every brutal murderer that's in their custody. At some point in time, he'll be free game. And that, my friends, is a fact. So to answer your question, I hope I did. I hope I answered it well. That is the fact. Jack. Schmitty sends in a super chat, $2. Always a fan. Name my new kitty. She's got a new kitten. She wants you guys the chat to name her kitty. Ed, do you see anything?
I'm looking. Diane says, hashtag DutyRon and Ed, I've missed you both. It's great. It's a great live. Once again, thank you. And DutyRon, sorry for your loss. Kisses.
Thank you so much. She wants to know, Dixie Chicken wants to know what Shitburger did to learn and cover his tracks. Well, Ed,
me too.
Yeah.
I want to see what software he used.
Yeah. Well, she talked a little bit about he used the Norton VPN, and he also used that the eraser app on his computer. But there has to be more. There has to be more that he used, because they went into great details in that 40-minute video with Brian Enton on some other things that they looked at, but they didn't go into details about it. So we have more questions for them. That is for sure. Hashtag Ed, hashtag DutyRon. I don't see a lot of questions. This is mind-boggling. Sometimes we get a lot, and sometimes we don't get them any at all. Here's one from Sandra. Ed,
do you really think his mom knew he had something to do with it? Deep down, there's got to be suspicion here. There's got to be suspicion. I heard his mom didn't want him to take the plea deal.
You heard.
Yeah.
We don't know if that's fact, because all we're hearing is what people are regurgitating. So we're not hearing from Bryan Kohberger's mother. Nobody heard from her. We didn't hear anything from the Kohbergers to date. So what maybe Sandra might have heard was somebody else, and what they might be thinking that the mom didn't want or wanted. So we appreciate that, and we thank you. But I happen to think, if I was a betting man, I would bet that either one or both of his parents knew what he did and why he was running home, and why Daddy had to get on a plane and ride cross country with him.
Well, his sister suspected him.
Yeah, 100%. Here's another one from Meg Z. She says, DutyRon and Ed, do you think he was following Maddie and Kaylee from the shadows when they went out that night? Anything's possible. We don't know. I wouldn't put it past them.
Well, I think they probably have his whereabouts before the crime occurred, because, again, they have the data from cell phone and his computer and his so that I think they know where he was before the events. So, I mean, if there was that linkage between him and where the victims were that night prior to the attack, that would be huge.
Yeah.
And we would know about it.
Agreed. I'm going to link Brian Enton's new YouTube channel in the description. Give me about a half hour after this is over. I want to thank everyone for the super chats and for the kind words, the messages on DutyRon.com, the private messages on social media. Because if you want to follow me, Ed or myself, on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, we're there. It's not necessarily Ed's there all the time, but we're there. I share our stuff on those platforms. So so many of you reached out on the different socials, the X platform, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. So thank you, everybody who has come in and positively engages, and also sends, your prayers, your condolences and stuff like that for the loss of the parrot, of Popeye, my parrot. So I appreciate it. My Insane World says, at DutyRon, would the other prisoners attack him for these killings since it's not a child? Well, I said, again, I think I gave my opinion on this. All it takes is one prisoner that doesn't like his attitude. He thinks he knows it all. He thinks he's the best guy in the room. That attitude won't work well in that prison environment, ladies and gentlemen. And I know this for a fact, because I was in and out of prisons for a long time towards the latter part of my career when I worked in the trip team. These prisoners, there's like a hierarchy and there's a structure in long-term housed prisoners. And you can't go in there with that attitude that he has had on the outside. If he takes that indoors, which it seems like he did in Latah County, if he takes that indoors, he's going to get his ass handed to him and shanked and all this other different stuff. The prisoners are preparing the food. Let's remember that the prison staff prepare the meals. That's part of the jobs. They clean up. They prepare the meals. And
They do laundry. They do all of that.
They do everything. So Bryan Kohberger could be getting fed meals with special sauce in it. I hate to be a little graphic here, but I'm going to call it as I know it. And there's many ways to mess with Bryan Kohberger.
Well, I mean, his persona, the way he carries himself, the way he stares at people, the way he sits, the way he stands, the fact that he's now being labeled a rat and a snitch. These are not good things to happen to you when you're in prison.
Yeah. Jackie says, LOL, they'll spit in his food. They'll do a little bit more than spitting, Jackie. Thank you for being nice. But there's a lot of things that happen in prison with the food.
You can't stare at inmates.
No.
You can and not expect there to be a negative response from it.
Yeah, exactly.
Pardon my French, but you're an asshole.
That goes to Bryan Kohberger. So if you're an asshole to these other prisoners and you're giving off that vibe that like my shit doesn't stink, I'm better than you, it ain't gonna work in there. So it is what it is. A lot of questions are flying by now as I'm getting ready to wrap. Let's see, DutyRon, I'm curious, why is he in a medical cell? We don't know if he's in a medical cell. That you're referring to popcorn jury, you're referring to that leaked out video. We don't know when that was. That could have been in Latah County. That could have been anywhere along the way. We have no confirmation of that video or where it was taken. And he will not be in a, that period is already, that ship's already gone out to sea. That evaluation period is over with. So I'm sure that he's going to be in regular housing if he's not already. So yeah, don't look at that video and take it like that's his current condition. That's where he is. Here's a funny one from Blackhawk, 57 Magnum. Here's a bugger for your soybean burger, sir. So yeah, there's all kinds of bugs in these places. There's big ass water bugs. There's Brian Enton described it as a sterile environment. Well, he wasn't there when the lights are out or in the middle of the night when the creepy crawlers come out. These places, I've been in them in the daytime. I've been in them at night. I've been in them at all different hours. And I would leave there sometimes wanting to like throw my clothes out. The things I was seeing crawling around just in the areas where I would do the takeout orders, Ed, these state prisons, especially in New York, oh my God, total shitholes. And when you get into these housing areas, it's even worse. All right, let's wrap it up. I see Ed is getting antsy. He's looking around because he's got his parents over there. So Ed's checking in on the rooms. They're there. They're out. One has escaped.
Yeah, my father broke the lock. I locked him in the room.
He did not do that. He did not do that. Magical Mary says, DutyRon, my brother works within the Idaho State prisons. The worst thing he did was complain about the other inmates. Exactly. You know, it's not going to work. This stuff is not going to go over well, and it's going to be stuff that he has to live with because there's no escaping there. He's in that cell 23 hours a day. He gets an hour to come out and do whatever he's got to do, and those are opportunities to get him. All right, on behalf of Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace, I want to thank you guys for watching. I want to thank the new subscribers. I know Ed, you know this rings true with you as well. We appreciate everyone's time that you spend here. There's many other, as Ed says, true crime channels that you could watch. I know you guys do, but we value your time. We value your thoughts, your opinions, and everyone's got, things to say. Ambient Films, thank you for the 5. Always good to see you. She says hi to your parents.
Okay, he's right here. Dad, come over. I'm gonna put my dad on the thing.
Okay. All right. You got full screen. Mr. Wallace coming into frame.
Just turn around here and say hi.
Hi.
That's Mr. Wallace right there, everybody. 90
years old.
God bless.
Okay, Dad.
Back to yourself.
Back to your cage.
Oh, Ed. So Ed is down at his secondary home. He's not at his primary, and he has his parents. Ed is one of the best sons that I know of because he takes his parents down with him and he takes them all around to their appointments and so forth. So Ed, God bless you. I mean, I know that's the right thing to do. I did it for my dad. I did it for my mom when she was alive. So
It's the children's responsibility to take care of their parents.
you are a lucky man, Ed, to have your parents still with you. And we thank your dad, Mr. Wallace, for producing such a fine young man as Ed Wallace, this man right here on the live stream with us. All right. On behalf of Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace, I want to send strength, prayers, and positive vibes to the surviving family members of Kaylee Gonzalez, Madison Mogan, Ethan Chapin, and Xana Knodel. That's what this is all about. I hope Kohberger rots from the inside out inside the Idaho State Correctional Facility. I hope he doesn't have one good day. And if it was up to me, he would be on the facing a firing squad, and I'd volunteer for it. Ed, you always got something else to say at the end of these things. It's over to you, Mr. Wallace.
All right, folks. Thanks for being here with us. Thanks for sharing your time. Thanks for supporting us. Thanks for being so respectful in the chat and spreading the word about us. With that said, I want you all to have a great evening, day, night, whatever the case may be where you are around the world. But always stay safe, stay prepared, and watch your six.
Amen. Good night from New York and that undisclosed location where Ed Wallace is. We can't tell you because if we do, we got to kill you. Talk to you soon. Thanks for joining, and good night from New York. We'll see you soon.